fires that are really hot. And of course, we had been hearing, oh, these fires were just really hot, and who knows what's really coming out of there, and gosh, this is also unprecedented. And then I looked at the temperature that he gave. The fires were about 1,800 degrees. Now that's what I read, and then I went to sleep. And then about 5:30 in the morning, and I pity my poor husband because I do this to him from time to time, I sit up straight in bed, and I said, 1,800 degrees! I know that number. It's the number, it's the temperature of a modern garbage incinerator. Well, we've got garbage incinerators all over the country, and EPA has been studying it. Okay, so combustion of mixed materials. What do you burn in a garbage incinerator? Well, you know, you burn cloth, you burn paper, you know, there's all kinds of cans and other things that get into these incinerators that you really shouldn't burn, but they get in there. What was in the towers? Well, there was, you know, there was a lot of plastic, there was a lot of paper, there was carpet, there was material. It just wasn't that different. They didn't have to take a single test to know that that stuff was toxic and that people shouldn't breathe it in. And they knew also that demolition, which produces a lot of cement dust is highly caustic. They already knew that. So they already had a lot of information in their arsenal before they took any tests. So that alone should make you go, you know, what are they doing? But as I started to look at this, an attorney that I knew who was representing some firefighters in the federal fund, I talked to him and he said, well, you know, I had been thinking about bringing a lawsuit. I ended up not doing it, but I did do some tests on the dust from firefighters' boots. Would you like to see them? Yes, I definitely want to see these tests. So he shows them to me. Extremely high levels of polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, PAHs, which you just heard about, are harmful. They're not only, many of them are not only carcinogenic, but they also have genetic effects. They can affect the unborn, okay, low birth weight, and also possibly make your offspring more susceptible to cancer, have a greater genetic disposition. Okay, it's a bad class of chemicals. It's what tends to be most toxic in cigarette smoke. EPA knows a lot about PAHs. They know that it's almost impossible to burn anything without producing PAHs. So there was all this test showing all these PAHs in this dust. And why was I so baffled? Because I hadn't heard boo from EPA about this. They talked about asbestos. They never said a word about PAHs. I went onto their website. They said there were no PAHs in the air. They didn't measure any PAHs in the air. How could there be no PAHs? I find out that some scientists from Toronto had come down and measured PAHs in window film, you know, just the stuff that gathers on windows, and had found high levels of PAHs in the window film closer to the towers, and you know, much higher than a control site quite a bit away. So I was like, okay, what's going on here? Gradually, as I looked through all of this, I found more and more of a pattern of EPA testing so as not to find anything. One transport workers union person said it was sort of like having a colander with gigantic holes in it and saying, "Look, there's no spaghetti." I mean, they tested so as not to find. They used outdated methodology. They used indoor testing devices on outdoor air. Almost everything they tested, they did it the wrong way, and it's not because they're incompetent. It's not as though they don't have the experts, but their best asbestos experts were told not to come to New York. The guys that had just done all the research out in Libby, Montana, where all those people were affected by asbestos, when they knew the towers went down, they knew there was going to be a lot of asbestos. They knew that they would need special equipment in order to test for it. They packed their bags. They had actually reserved hotel rooms. They were going to come to New York, and they were told, "Don't come. Stay home." Research Triangle Park, where the best scientists are. They were not the ones here doing all of this testing. It was being handled as though it was sort of a regulatory matter, like they were licensing a power plant or something. And as far as I can tell, they essentially gave a permit to Osama bin Laden. It's okay to burn 2 gigantic towers. You don't produce hazardous pollutants. when you burn two 110-story towers? How can that possibly be? So you come back to this whole issue of common sense, because that's what will happen to you. That's what happened here. And this was the federal government telling people to ignore their common sense. If they had kept their mouths shut and just said nothing, we all would have been better off. Because more of us would have used our common sense. We would have looked at that and would have said, well, you know, that looks bad. It smells bad. Probably shouldn't breathe it in. But we were told, no, it's okay. You know, yeah, it looks bad, but it's not really that bad. You know, it's okay. Come back, come back. Come back to work. Come back to your homes. Come back. 2,700 children under the age of 10 live in the community district that includes the towers. They said, come back. They told the parents, you can clean up the dust in your homes yourself. You don't have to have professional cleaners. You can clean it up yourself with a wet mop and a wet rag. How many kids were told to clean their room? That's what I'd like to know. But that was our city health department, and that was our federal environmental protection agency telling people, come back, it's fine. That's what happened here in New York City. And what is the result? People are sick. We're not saying 10 people or 50 people or 100 people. Many hundreds of people are sick. And what do they want to do? Well, they certainly don't want to go back and test and figure out if any of the World Trade Center dust is still in all these buildings that were permeated. They're fighting that. And they don't want to measure. They don't want to find out who's sick. They don't want to know how many people are sick. They don't want to have long-term medical monitoring to find out how sick these people become. That's what's going on right now. Why? You know, it was certainly the most top-down thing I ever experienced in terms of White House control. Every single word of every single press release was combed over. Information control, enormous information control. Scientists afraid to speak, worried that if they publish an article, they'll lose their next batch of funding from the federal government. So we're really dealing with a truth issue here, with tremendous public health and environmental health impacts. I guess I want to say that John was absolutely right in what he's been talking about. I want to say that what's happening now is that the federal government and the people in control of the federal government are becoming further and further distant from the general public, and it's a very dangerous thing for all of us. The racism impacts are enormous, but it's hitting all of us. I mean, all of the people who gave their health for the stock exchange in New York City. Just think about that. You don't matter. You really don't matter to these people. It's important to understand they don't care. They don't care about you, and they won't care about you unless you cause them a lot of pain. You know, they say politicians understand two things, money and pain. If you can't dish out the money, you better dish out the pain. And that means we've got to get vocal. We've got to be writing to newspapers. We've got to be demanding coverage because they're trying to take the media away from us. And that's really one of our most important tools. So we've got to fight that battle for the media. And we've got to fight at every local level for our politicians to be responsive and accountable to us. No office is too small to care about. Local level to the grassroots up. But we absolutely have to get involved and fight to take our country back. We've got to fight for control over our lives, for control over our communities, for control over our health. We're at in my opinion, a very, very dangerous juncture in our country's history, and we all have to get involved, So that's it for me.